Hello students, this video is about special triangles. Special triangles come from the ratio of the sides of triangles. Whenever you have the ratio of two sides of a triangle, like on this little baby triangle A over B, that ratio would be the exact same thing if the triangle were larger, like this triangle, and we have A over B. As long as the angles are the same, it doesn't matter what size the triangle is, you get the same ratio. The ratio of sides is always the same when the angles are the same. And that is actually the basis of trigonometry, which we'll get into a little bit more later this semester. So there's two kinds of special triangles. The first one is a 45-45-90 triangle. 45-45-90. Whenever you have a triangle with those angles, the ratio of the sides is always 1, 1, square root of 2. In other words, it's going to be isosceles. We're going to have two sides that are the same, 1, 1, and then the side that's across from the 90 degrees, the hypotenuse is in the ratio of square root of 2. So if you want to find the hypotenuse is the leg times the square root of 2. If you want to know what the leg is, the leg equals the hypotenuse divided by the square root of 2. So here's an example. Let's say in this triangle we know that the leg is 3. Let's see if we can find out what all the other sides are. Well, if this leg is 3, then the other leg must also be 3. Now we want to find the hypotenuse. Well, the hypotenuse is the leg times the square root of 2. So we're going to have 3 times the square root of 2. Okay, and a second example. Here we start with the hypotenuse, and we say the hypotenuse is 5. Well, if that's 5, what would the legs be? The legs equal the hypotenuse divided by the square root of 2. So, in order to find the legs, we're going to take this 5, divide by the square root of 2. But here we have an issue because we're not supposed to have square root of 2 in the denominator. So now we need to rationalize it by multiplying by the square root of 2. Square root of 2 times square root of 2 is just 2. The square roots cancel. And then at the top we have 5 square root of 2. So now I can just say that my other leg is the same as the first leg, but now I'm going to write it as 5 square root of 2 over 2. The second kind of triangle is a 30-60-90 triangle. Whenever the angles are in the ratio 30-60-90, the sides are in the ratio 1 square root of 3, 2. So here in this triangle, the side that's opposite the 30 degrees, the smallest angle, is opposite the smallest side, which is 1. The hypotenuse is 2 times as large, and the long leg is the square root of 3. So now we have to distinguish between the long leg, LL, and the short leg, SL. If we want to know what the hypotenuse is, it is 2 times the short leg. If we want to know what the long leg is, it is the short leg times the square root of 3. And if the short leg is the piece that's missing, you can find it by either dividing the hypotenuse by 2, or the short leg equals the long leg divided by the square root of 3. When we have 30-60-90 triangles, sometimes it's easier to start by finding the short leg first. Alright, let's look at an example. Here in this triangle, I can see that it's a 30-60-90 triangle because it has a 60 inside here, and we have the hypotenuse is 5. Now, if the hypotenuse is 5, let's try to find out what the short leg is first. So the short leg equals the hypotenuse divided by 2. Half the hypotenuse. Okay, well half of 5 is 2.5. Alright, now we can find the long leg. The long leg equals the short leg times the square root of 3. So the short leg being 2.5, the long leg will be 2.5 square root of 3. Alright, so we found all the sides. What if we start with the long leg first, and we know that the long leg equals 3? Well, if the long leg equals 3, what does the short leg equal? The short leg is the long leg divided by the square root of 3. 3 divided by the square root of 3 will give me the short leg. Let's write that to the side so we can rationalize it. We need to multiply by square root of 3 over square root of 3 in order to get the square root out of the denominator. Square root of 3 times square root of 3 is just 3. And it looks like the 3's actually canceled just to give me square root of 3. Now let's find the hypotenuse. The hypotenuse is 2 times the short leg. That's 2 times the short leg, square root of 3. And I found all the sides. Let's look at a harder example. Here we have a 45, 45, 90 triangle. So I have to remember the ratios from the previous one, 1, 1, square root of 2. If this leg is 1, if this leg is 7, then the other leg must also be 7. They're the same. Then I can find the hypotenuse of this bottom triangle by doing my leg times the square root of 2. So 7 square root of 2 is the hypotenuse. Okay, now let's look at the top triangle. Looking at the top triangle, the 7 square root of 2 is now the leg. That means that the other leg must be the same for this triangle. 7 square root of 2, 7 square root of 2. Now to find the hypotenuse of the top triangle, I have to take its leg and multiply again by the square root of 2. 7 square root of 2 times square root of 2. Let's write that out to the side. Well, the square root of 2 times the square root of 2 is just 2. And 7 times 2 is 14. So x is 14. And last example, this side is 5. This is a 30, 60, 90 triangle because of the 30 here. And since this 5 is right across from the 90 degrees, it's the hypotenuse. Let's see if we can find the short leg. The short leg is equal to the hypotenuse divided by 2. Since the hypotenuse is 5, the short leg will be 5 divided by 2. Half of 5 is 2.5. Now let's see if we can find the short leg of the second triangle. The short leg here, the 2.5 is the long leg of the top of this triangle on top here. So the short leg equals the long leg divided by the square root of 3. So we need to have 2.5 divided by the square root of 3 for the value of the short side. Okay, and we need to rationalize that to get the square root out of the denominator. Square root of 3 times square root of 3 is just 3. So we have 2.5 square root of 3 divided by 3. 2.5 divided by 3 is 5 over 6. So this is 5 over 6 square root of 3. And that is our answer.